there will be 72 hours, that Hamas has 72 hours to find all of those remains and hand them over, with the understanding, and both the Hamas officials and Israeli officials do understand, that some of these remains are buried under rubble. And if you look at Gaza, it's easy to understand.
And the Israelis have already threatened that if some of those 28 remains are not found, they're going to have a special forces unit go and locate those remains, which could add, and obviously will add, tension to what's happening. Because at this point, it is still unclear who is going to take over Gaza, who is going to run Gaza. And as we were talking earlier, those are the thornier parts of this peace plan. Phase 2, phase 3, what happens after the 20 living hostages come out?
So this is there was a threat also added to this timeline. So there had always been this expectation that recovering the bodies was going to take some time. Tonight, the Israeli military said 72 hours. That's what you have to hand over these bodies. Find them and hand them over. And if you don't, there will be this there'll be this special forensics unit that will go and look for them. That could be very provocative if you suddenly have Israeli special forces
back all over Gaza,
all over Gaza hunting for remains. It goes with the concept, a well-established concept all over the world, of a concept that the Israelis take very seriously, but that all armies take very seriously, about leaving no man behind.
Yeah. That being said, the Egyptians, the Turks, the Qataris, the Americans, they're all here, and they're going to be in Egypt, and they're going to be in the region trying to make sure this peace plan lasts. I do want to get to our chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander, who joins our team tonight from Jerusalem. Peter, walk our viewers tonight through the president's schedule, because it's going to be very robust as he arrives here in Israel and then heads over to Egypt.
Yeah, Tom, you're right. Notably, it's robust, but it's also very brief. The president, at least if the schedule holds, is supposed to be on the ground here in the Middle East, not just in Israel, but in Egypt, combined for less than 8 hours, about 7.5 hours as planned. His first stop will be arriving not far from where you are at Ben Gurion Airport there in Tel Aviv. The president will then head here to Jerusalem. He's expected to meet, according to the White House's schedule, and officials there we've been speaking to, with the families of hostages before he speaks to the Knesset here. And when he arrives in Jerusalem, he will be greeted, much like the signs and the placards you're seeing there, with some remarkable American celebrations. The patriotism toward the United States in this country, I think, is particularly compelling. We are here at the Old City, but earlier we were in a different area here where they have a giant Israeli and American flag being projected onto the walls of the Old City. And as I was speaking to some of the Israelis who were out tonight, one stopped me and said, "Are you American?" And I said I was. And they said, "Before you ask me any questions, please let me tell you how grateful we are to you. We feel like, as Israelis, we are a part of America. We are an extension of your country." They are incredibly grateful for the efforts of this administration to help arrive upon this day, and sort of to punctuate the moments that we're seeing here ahead of that hostage release, the Knesset speech to take place in this country. Tomorrow also intersects with the beginning of a holy day, a holiday of Sukkot here, which is a fall festival. So there are already joyful celebrations in a country that feels very different than it has over the course of these last 2 years. When the president departs Jerusalem, he'll return to Tel Aviv, where he will fly directly about 350 miles as the crow flies to Sharm el-Sheikh, the Red Sea resort in Egypt, where he will be joined by world leaders there for what's being described as a Middle East peace ceremony, a signing ceremony of sorts. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear the president deliver remarks there as well. Among those dignitaries expected to be in attendance, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer of the United Kingdom, the French President, Emmanuel Macron, and likely representatives from some of the other countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, and Jordan, which is notable because one of the key moments that led us to this point in the conversations we've been having privately with those involved in this process was a meeting that took place only a matter of weeks ago at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, where the president met with some of the top leaders of these Arab countries, and where that 20-point plan that now appears to be the plan off of which they are working was set in place. Of course, there are a lot of questions about some points in that plan after the release of these hostages. The first 20, as you and Richard have been reporting, to be released by noon tomorrow. The remains of the 28 others to be released over the course of the next 72 hours. The real questions, though, that remain in terms of the plan are what happens thereafter in terms of the disarmament of Hamas, the interim political structure, the security force that will be made up of an international group, what that will look like with representatives, soldiers, as it were, from different nations around the world. So there's still a lot to be sorted out, but at least on the eve of the hostage release and the return of some of those prisoners from, some of them, Ramallah, just a short distance away from where we are in the West Bank, this is really a day that at least both sides are celebrating.
All right, Peter Alexander. Peter, we thank you as we watch Air Force One ready to depart from Joint Base Andrews. Richard, we should also mention that there's so many Palestinians, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, that are returning to Gaza City, returning to the north of Gaza to come back to, they're not even sure what they're coming back to destruction in many regards.
So Israeli troops have not pulled out of Gaza. They have pulled back from several main population centers. So over the course of these last 2 years, Palestinians have been displaced from one city to the next, often living in open areas between towns and cities, staying on the beach, staying in tents. And now that Israelis have pulled back from the main population centers, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are going back to where they lived before, and many of them are finding ruins. And Palestinians we've been speaking to today, who initially were happy, joyful, celebrating that the war was over, now that's more of a sense of relief, and anger is starting to settle in.
And Richard, you're going to have a report for us tonight on Nightly News as we watch Air Force One about to lift off. The aid is now flowing. There's more aid coming in now, correct?
A little bit. I would say it's trickling in. Some, just dozens of trucks got in today. Hundreds of trucks are parked around Gaza, near Gaza. They're full, they're ready.
Fuel, food, everything.
Food, everything.
When would those go in?
I was speaking with aid groups just today. They don't really have a lot of clarity. It depends on how it goes tomorrow. Okay. If tomorrow goes smoothly, then I think the flow of aid will go much more smoothly. All of the aid is inspected by Israel, so it is a process. Yep. It comes in, it's screened, then distributed.
Air Force One now in the air, roughly a 10-hour flight here to Israel. We will be back on the air for Nightly News tonight, and of course, we will bring you when the president arrives here again tomorrow. That's going to conclude this NBC News special report. We're going to have much more ahead on NBC News Now, online at NBCnews.com, and again, a full wrap-up tonight when I see you on Nightly News. I'm Tom Llamas reporting tonight.